Hello, everybody. This is Patrick Gill, Polygon.com, live at GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, and I am joined by two gentlemen, one of them on camera and one of them not quite on camera. From Milkbag Games, I'm joined by Matt and Owen.
Hi. Yeah. Hi.
How y'all doing?
We're doing all right. Yeah. Good. It's fun to be here in GDC at GDC in San Francisco.
How's your GDC going so far?
It's gone well. Yeah. We saw some cool talks the other day. So.
Yeah. So today is technically the first day, right?
Yeah. Today is day one.
This is my first GDC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like a brand new baby out here. And the game we are playing, if I haven't already mentioned it, is FutureGrind. Tell me about FutureGrind because it looks like a trip.
Yeah, so FutureGrind is a futuristic stunt platformer. It's kind of what we're calling it right now. Mm-hmm. It's like an extreme sport from the future where you have this crazy bike and you're trying to survive and get to the end of the track. So surviving is actually pretty hard because if your wheels touch the wrong color, they explode.
Okay.
So right now he's got two blue wheels, so if they ever touch red, he's just going to explode. So he has to make sure that they either touch blue or white, because the white rails are safe no matter what color your wheels are.
Gotcha. And I noticed that in the last track, the bike had a different design.
Yeah, so as you go through the game, you'll unlock more bikes, and the bikes have kind of different gameplay mechanics to them, different colors, and they just kind of play differently. And each bike has its own tracks designed for that bike as well.
Awesome. So tell me a bit about when I look at a game like this, one of the questions I usually think is like, when did you know you had a game here?
Yeah, so this game has been like a long time kind of brewing in the back of my mind. Yeah. I think the first prototype I did for it was actually back in 2010. Originally, it was going to be like this little Infinite Runner mobile game, and then I kind of just kept going with that and realized like it would make a much better, like fully polished game with like distinct levels, not endless. That's the other thing we should mention. Some people look at it and think it's going to be an infinite game, but it's not. These are all handcrafted levels. And so, yeah, it was. I mean, early on, I knew there was something interesting to it. I really wanted a game where we keep crashing. I really wanted a game where like you have the swinging and hanging from things. Like the whole game is designed around that feeling of swinging from objects, basically. And so, like, once we had that working, we knew that it was going to be something interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And tell me a bit about the aesthetic too. I think the obvious comparison most people make when they see it would probably say Tron.
Yeah.
Right. The light trails and the neon and stuff like that. But I'm interested in readability here. Tell me about the design decisions in terms of making this game possible, because it looks kind of hard and it looks like the kind of game where if one thing was kind of off, it just would not work.
Yeah, so we've had like probably one of the biggest struggles we've had is the idea of keeping things readable, because we have at least with this bike we've got these blue and kind of pinkish rails, and it's really important that we don't have like blue and pink stuff in the background that confuses you. And then but we also have these other bikes that have different colored wheels, so we need to kind of like keep all that. I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough balance. And then the other thing we found that was a big issue was kind of the level of detail and things. So we added depth of field to the game, not just for style because it looks kind of better, but it's also really important to keep the foreground separate from the background, which is a problem most kind of platform games have. And we call this a platform game because in some ways that's what it is, but it's very much like in the spirit of games like OlliOlli and also Tony Hawk and games like that to a certain extent. And Trials. Other people mention Trials. So.
Yeah, it definitely gives me Tony Hawk vibes. It's very run-based. It's the kind of game where it looks like the thing that compels you to keep going is to do better than the last time. How does the stunt system here work?
So the stunts is we wanted to keep it really minimal. So unlike a lot of other games in this genre, there's no do trick button, there's no flip button or anything like that. It's all very analog. So the controls wise, it's just jump button and left and right to spin. That's all you do. But you have a double jump. You have a lot of control over the jumping because of the double jump and like how long you hold the button controls how high you go and stuff like that. And then scoring wise, we've got these basically front flips and back flips, and then you've got 4 different types of grinds depending on how your wheel is laid out. Depending on how your wheel, so like there, for example, you did a push grind where one wheel is under and the other wheel is over. So it really depends kind of how the bike is relative to the rail. So we only have 4 grinds and 2 flips, but using those, the scoring system gives you, if you look in the bottom left, or when he's doing a trick, if it's yellow, it's what we call a golden trick, and that's the first time you've done that trick in a run.
Gotcha. And
so you get double the points, and strategically what you want to do is you want to do your biggest grind on the longest rail you can find in the level, and you want to find a good spot to do like a mega 1080 backflip where you're not going to miss out on your multiplier increase. And you get multiplier by touching new rails.
It seems like the kind of game where you definitely need to balance survival and showing off.
Yes.
A little bit. But is there the possibility of like a score-based failure, or like if you make it to the end, did you make it to the end?
So in the single player, there's kind of a career mode, and in that mode, you basically get missions that you have to do. And so sometimes that'll just be survive to the end of the track. Usually your first mission on a track is survive to the end, but then we have other missions where your mission might be to do a 1080 backflip, or it might be to do something more interesting like complete the whole run without touching any red rails the entire time, or things like that. So there's a lot of variety in like what you have to do, and it's not like we force you to stay on one track all the time. We go back and forth we'll make you go back to an earlier track that was easy and make you do something really difficult on it as well.
So do we want to take a look at something new?
Sure, yeah, we can show...
This is new.
Okay, yeah, so this is a new track we've never shown before. So this is the, what we call the city area. And so this is... Yeah, it's kind of a crazy... Okay, so this is a different mechanic as well. So those...
Well, I'm going to show that again.
Yeah. So these special, the kind of red region will actually change the color of your wheels when you go through it.
Oh my gosh.
So we start to have, we're not going to be showing all the mechanics today because there's a couple other things, but we wanted to keep the gameplay itself really simple, but then do extra things to add complexity.
Right, you're layering some stuff on. Oh my god.
In the actual level itself.
Yeah.
And so this level, you'll see, the other thing we do is we mess with your perspective. So these tracks are actually spiraling through space.
Yeah,
and it's like flipping upside down and everything. So we start to go... This is just kind of like a sample of how crazy the game gets later. So not only does like the gameplay itself is actually relatively simple. It's almost 2D, but we're starting to spin your camera and the track in 3D space, almost like a ribbon. And that really makes it a lot harder to play, but also it feels cooler to play when you manage to kind of see what's going on.
Tell me a bit about failure, and in particular, in a game like this, making failure not terribly frustrating.
Yeah, so there's a few things that... actually, in a really old version of the game, you didn't used to explode when you failed. It was just like you would lose a lot of speed.
Yeah.
And when your wheels touched the wrong color, and it just didn't feel right. Like, we really wanted that like instant death feel that you failed. So that was important, but then we realized if we're going to have failure that's easy to happen, we need to have restarting be instantaneous. So anytime he presses triangle, he will just restart like right away. So it's instant restart. There's no loading time. There's no animation or anything. It's just start over. And then the other thing that's really important is that the tracks are relatively short. Like they're dense, but they're short. They're probably 30 seconds to maybe a minute at the very longest. So they're very quick, but quite difficult still. Like it can take dozens of tries to beat a single track just to survive, not even worrying about score or anything.
Yeah. So. I love that you're using the ragdoll as a reward, both as like a thing, like here's something funny to laugh at when you die, and also I love that you just say, let's get that laugh again when you actually do a good job. Because everybody loves seeing a little guy go tumbling off of things. Have you made a track so hard yet that you couldn't beat it? And I guess tell me about balancing the difficulty here. Yeah, so
we've made some pretty hard tracks. I think in general, like when we're making tracks, we'll make them and we'll kind of tweak them as we go. So it hasn't been as much like we'll kind of design a section and then we'll see how that plays and design the next one. So I don't think we've intentionally made a track that's so hard we can't beat it, but a lot of the time Owen will go and make a track and send it to me, and at first I'm like, this is crazy. Like, we can't do this. And then I'll play it for another 15-20 minutes and be like, okay, wait, I get kind of what you're going for. It's actually really good. And a lot of time when we do these extra missions for ourselves too, where it's like complete the whole track without, like, you could try it right now, like try completing the whole track. This is actually a really hard one to do it on, but most of the other tracks, like if I say try and complete it without touching a red rail, you can usually do it. Just because of like how we've laid out the tracks, most of the tracks just kind of allow for that kind of gameplay anyway. But yeah, it's a hard game to balance.
I can try an all orange run here.
Yeah, so you can try and avoid the green.
Maybe not.
It'll take a lot of tries, probably.
This one
so maybe.
you have to drop down.
Oh wow! Okay, here we go.
So if it is possible on just about every track to do it, it's just really, really hard.
So have you ever thought about? In a second here, I think we're gonna get into the career mode. But hearing you talk about making these tracks and sending them to each other, is that a feature that you want to eventually have in a Mario Maker FutureGrind?
I mean, we would love to have that sort of thing. It's definitely not going to be in for launch because at this point we want to have like a core, really good single-player experience for people. We love the idea of that. The problem is that right now the tracks are super... you can kind of see in the background, like when he starts the track, you can see another track back there.
Yeah.
So all of the tracks in a given region are actually taking up the same place, same space, and they're kind of like interwoven in interesting ways. And then, like you saw on that other level, they also twist and turn through space. So giving people the control over all of that is going to be really hard.
It's going to be a heavy lift.
It'll be tough, but we may be able to do the sort of thing where each track is kind of made out of pieces and you configure the pieces and you have a lot of control over them or something. So that's definitely something we want to think about. But we really want to, like, for launch, we want to deliver just a core, really good single player experience that has just shows like kind of the full range of what we can do with these mechanics and gives people a good challenge at the same time.
Yeah. So now we've got career mode.
Yes. So I should mention that all the like visuals you're seeing, especially for the menus, they're still kind of placeholder-ish. Like it's a little bit bland right now, but we have a lot of plans to like make this look cooler. But we have like the functionality in place, so we can show how the career mode works.
This is the first time we've really talked about career mode, so that's
it's true. We haven't really been talking about it before. So career mode, you get. It's kind of like a text messaging interface.
Yep.
So you get messages that at first you get it from Ada, who is the first sponsor rep. So we have this kind of sponsorship. But this is in the future, obviously, because FutureGrind. And so there's this whole sponsorship system around grinding. And there's these different grinding corporations that are looking for new grinders to go and do runs on their tracks and to like show up in commercials and things like that. And so you start getting these assignments where you have to complete a certain task on a track. And and so she asks you to do something and you have to go do it. And that's basically how you advance the story. I mean, it's a simple thing at first, but it allows us to do some interesting stuff where we give you some kind of crazy assignments and it also allows us to like start people off nice and easy because the game is it's hard to tell when he's playing, but the game is really difficult. That's the other thing. It's like super hard. So this at first just starts you off nice and easy. And the other thing this does is this is kind of like a tutorial system. So you get she'll send you like basically animated GIFs. We figure in the future that animated GIFs, they're like the one format that's going to live on. And so, these aren't even, I mean, they're text messages, but our lore thing is that they're actually like neurally sent messages that people are thinking and sending to you or whatever. But yeah, so she'll send you images that show you how to do stuff. And then so you start having to do certain tricks. You basically always have to survive the track when you're doing these missions. And then eventually you start getting messages from other sponsor reps who are asking you to do other things. And then eventually there's... Now, I mean, up to this point, the story is, it's pretty basic. Like lots of games have this sort of story, but there's a whole kind of like sort of twist to it later on in the game where there's a kind of subversive nature to everything.
Oh, cool.
not everything is as it seems.
Yeah, everything isn't as it seems. That's a good way to
put
it. Yeah.
Are you looking at any sort of is the storyline mostly a linear storyline, or is it?
It's fairly linear. Yeah. So it's linear with some other elements that are slightly less linear, but for the most part, it's a fairly linear storyline. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason for that is just we really need to make sure that people understand certain mechanics before they go on too far. And the other thing is we're only a 2-person team, so like writing branching dialogue trees and all that is out of the question. And we think we could tell the story we want to tell within like these confines, so it should work out well.
I'm curious about the lineage of the game, and you've mentioned a couple other games that sort of inspired it, but what's, you know...
So it depends. I mean, usually it depends on who's asking, like, the way I explain it, but the real inspiration is a game called Elastomania, which is an old PC game. Yes. You may remember it, where like you had this crazy bike and you're collecting apples or something. Yeah. And there was like flowers you had to collect at levels, I think. Yeah. And you would like swing on things and you would make levels of like polygons and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that game was amazing. So
that was a really good game.
Yeah, it was like ahead of its time.
The spirit of that one lived on a little bit for me in Trials.
Yeah, Trials was kind of like the polished version of Elastomania in some ways.
But yeah, no, I can definitely see where you're coming from that, because I remember downloading a lot of the custom tracks on Elastomania that were just like totally grind based.
Yeah. There's some where you would just like hang on this thing the whole level. Yeah. And then there was the ones where like you'd go down a giant hill and up like a half pipe, and your guy would just like, I think you would do like crazy spins, and your like the suspension of the bike would just stretch apart, so it like keep stretching.
Physics is obviously a huge part of this. Like, what was the process of tuning the physics to feel good the way you wanted it to feel?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the interesting thing about this game is we tried to do it using the game is made with Unity, and we tried to do it using an off-the-shelf like built-in physics engine, and it just didn't have the feeling we want. Like when you use a normal physics engine, things don't actually stick to things as much as you want them to. Like they kind of bump, and there's a little bit of jitter. So we ended up writing the whole kind of physics platforming. That's part of the reason we call it a platforming game, is because the way the engine works is and the physics works is actually more similar to a platform game, because we really wanted the kind of responsiveness you have with like a custom-built physics system than just like a generic kind of floaty physics engine. So everything is really like custom written for scratch just to have the game play the way we want. We want, when you stick to a rail, we want it to feel kind of like a magnetism. Yeah. The other thing I didn't really mention, but when you've probably seen Owen do it in the video, where if you hold jump while you're touching a rail, you'll stick to it along the bottom of it. And so that's really important for just the feel of the game, and stuff like that would just be so hard to do with anything but our own like custom physics stuff.
Definitely. It's a cool looking game. So so this game is currently available, or it's almost out?
It's almost out. It's we've been working on this game for longer than we thought. A long time ago, this game started as like a 2D pixel art game, and then we really wanted to, like, we liked the idea, we liked how it felt, and so we wanted to do a much more. So he's unlocked Grant. Grant's gonna start giving us some messages and stuff now.
Nice.
So yeah, we really wanted to kind of do the game justice. Like we were like, if we're gonna make this, we should really, do the game as we think it should be. And so that's why we've been doing it 3D, and it's taken like 2.5 years instead of the a year or so that we thought it was gonna take. But we're finally like we're basically finishing making levels, finishing writing dialogue and stuff like that. So it's coming together.
When you get this one out, is this going to have been the first game that you've completed together as a unit, or have you worked together in the past?
No. So we both made games individually, and then we made a game together called Disco Zoo, which is a mobile game. It's a very, very different game from this. It's great in its own way, but it's completely different from this game. And it involves like cute little pixel art animals that are basically in a zoo, and they love dancing, and and they have disco parties. Yeah, it's literally about as different as you could get from this game. Yeah. But it was successful. It was really popular on iOS, and like has its own fan base that we're probably completely like alienating by making this game. but yeah.
Are you gonna work a little Disco Zoo in here? Nod somewhere?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, we probably.
It might be nice.
There might be a couple little nods to it here and there. We might make a nod to this game in Disco Zoo too. That's probably something that should happen. But yeah, we worked really well together on that, so we decided to make this game.
We've done some jam games we released too.
Yeah, we released the one game we're probably most proud of is a game called Photobomb. Explaining that game is even harder, but it involves time travel and solving the mystery of like who planted a bomb in a city square and and there's a whole like kind of political message to it and stuff.
Yeah.
It involves using social media too.
Yes, to investigate. It was based on like the aftermath of the Boston bombings. Yeah. So it's also completely different for this game in just about every way. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. We're a little off topic now. We'll circle back around to the game, but tell me a little bit about the indie dev scene in Toronto. Where you're both based in Toronto, yes?
Yes. So, well, we say Toronto. I mean, we're really both like kind of in suburbs of Toronto, but we attend some events in Toronto and stuff. Yeah. So the Toronto game indie scene is great. Like, there's like pretty much too many events to go to.
Yeah.
But just so many good things and like such a tight knit community of people. Really good game jams, really good meetups. Great indie studios like Cappy. So it's really cool. Yeah, it's great.
Cool. Can we take a look at one or two more levels, and then we should probably.
Sure. Let me do some score attack stuff.
Let's
we
do
can
some
show
score
you
attack stuff.
a few more levels here. Show you Hillside, which is the gimbal bike in Miramar Beach level.
So you are. This game will be available on Steam, I assume. Is it coming to any other platforms yet?
Steam and PS4.
Steam and PS4.
Yeah.
Very cool. So tell me a bit about developing in tandem for there. Is that fairly easy with Unity? I'm not a developer.
Yeah, so, well, the interesting thing about this is, like, Owen, his background was working at EA as a developer, so he's got, like, real, like, he's a real programmer who knows how to program. And my background is, like, more making, like, Flash games and not as a real developer as much. But the funny thing is that with this game, he's actually doing most of the art, and I'm doing most of the programming for some reason. That's just, he's better at doing art than me, basically. And so, yeah, I don't know. So it's weird. It's worked really well, though. Like, we both, I don't know. Like, we both understand each other, and, like, we both have a very similar philosophy about what we think about games and, like, the kind of games we enjoy and all that. So it's worked out really well. And Owen's done, like, a great job making the art and stuff. And
oh, thanks.
Aww. And it's also both of our first time making a game in 3D, so that's been a crazy learning experience.
Yeah, what are the big takeaways for you so far?
Well, one of the hardest things was doing the 2D thing, mapping to this. So you'll see right here when he comes, as long as he doesn't crash, right here. Like this track twists sideways in 3D space as well. It's going to flip completely upside down. So like doing that and having it work in a way where like the camera's not all janky, flying everywhere, and like the other problem is the camera could fly into the rocks, so we need to do all this stuff to look ahead and make sure the camera's not going to fly into rocks and stuff. So it really is a ton more work to make a game in 3D, and I have a huge amount more respect for everyone who's released making games in general. Like, doesn't matter whether it's 2D, 3D, text-based. Making games is hard anyway, and so making a game in 3D, it's been a lot of work, but it's really rewarding as well when it all comes together.
Cool. Well, it's been really cool taking a look at it. Where can people find out more about your stuff?
So this game, you can find out more about it at FutureGrind.net, and also you can. I guess our Twitter is Milkbag Games on Twitter. Yes. And yeah, make sure like is it Milkbag Games? So it's Milkbag Games on Twitter. Owen is Owen Goss on Twitter, and I'm Matt Rix, Mattrix.
Yeah, I'm OwenGoss.
Yeah, we both have short names, so it's good.
Yeah. Good for
so yeah, follow us on Twitter. We tweet like random videos of the game being made. Yeah, and check out our stuff and hopefully follow along with the game. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us. This has been Polygon.com live at GDC. We will be back tomorrow. I think this is our last stream for the day. We've got a whole bunch more of these GDC streams, so if you're into indie games, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell anybody who will listen to watch these damn streams. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us.